My friends, most people I know like stained glass windows. You know, there's just something so attractive, so mesmerizing about them. And many of the world's most astounding examples of this art form are found in churches, much like our own. And often when someone steps into a traditional type church for the first time, their attention immediately gets drawn to the walls of the structure as they search for these beautiful creations. Some truly take one's breath away. And you know, from a distance, most stained glass windows look almost perfect, almost magical in their intricate compositions. How in the world do they do that? We might think to ourselves. And the most important examples seem to embody an almost impossible quality, a wow factor. So people often just stand there staring and staring and staring. And yet, if the windows are low enough to the ground, people will often walk right up to them to get a better look, to get as close as possible. And as they get closer and closer, they usually begin to see something much different from what they saw at a distance. No longer does the window stimulate the same kind of awe from the viewer. The beautiful image of the person or the scene can no longer be grasped in its entirety. The viewer now sees the imperfections that they couldn't see from a distance, sees features that seem like kind of random, disordered, and at times out of place. The viewer then begins to notice that the pieces of glass themselves are not perfect at all, not perfect at all. Many have inconsistent coloration or scratches or flaws inside of them. The shapes no longer look precisely cut, but instead look like an assortment of broken pieces, fragments that have been reassembled. Even the window panes they sit in are often weathered, dusty, tarnished in some way. And so the viewer wonders, how could all these not so beautiful things come together so as to make something incredibly beautiful? When they had had their fill, Jesus said to his disciples, gather the fragments, gather the pieces left over, so that nothing will be wasted. My friends, I don't have to tell you that we are a broken, fragmented people. Even those people who seem to have it all almost certainly do not. And some of that brokenness comes from wounds inflicted on us by others. The pain and the scars that remain after we've been wronged or hurt or treated unjustly in some way. Some of that brokenness comes from an environment we grew up in or the situation in which we currently find ourselves. And some of that brokenness is a result of the randomness of life, the path of a storm, the diagnosis of a serious illness, the ending of a relationship. And some of our brokenness is self-inflicted, harm we've done to ourselves, from our choices, from our sin. And so we find ourselves in pieces, fragmented. The question for each of us is, what am I going to do with all these pieces? What am I supposed to do with all my brokenness? Well, that's not exactly the right question. The essential question, the most faithful question, is what will I allow Jesus to do with all the broken, fragmented pieces that I am? And that is where authentic faith comes in, my friends. Without faith, we'll probably just remain as we are. Fragments of something that might have been or once was. but with an openness to God's grace and with a trusting heart, who knows what beautiful creation awaits the miraculous blessing of Jesus Christ? Who knows what astonishing stained glass window that is incredible person each of us can become if we truly allow Jesus to pick up the fragments of our lives and transform them into something much more breathtaking than ever before. Gather the fragments left over so that nothing will be wasted. That is the voice of the compassionate friend we have in Jesus, who desires to use every single piece of us, all the good and all the not so good, all the joys and all the sorrows, all the triumphs and all the tragedies. Not a single piece of us, not a single piece of us will be wasted or thrown into the trash. Jesus will reassemble it all, come together in such a way that it will leave us astonished at the beautiful person looking back at us in the mirror. You know, my friends, with Jesus Christ, there is always, always more than enough. And that's a truth we often forget or we find difficult to believe. And that does not just apply to loaves and fishes. It applies to you and to you and to you and to me. We have enough. We have more than enough, my friends. Just imagine that. So when we allow Jesus Christ to pick up the fragments of our lives, or will the rest of the world continue to hunger for the person we could have been? Willing to leave the world a little more nourished, a little more cared for, a little bit more loved than we found it. And that is something vitally important for each of us to think about this day and every day.